Yo, what is good, you guys? Welcome to the video. Today we're going to discuss the best classes to play in Throne and Liberty. Mostly I'm going to be covering all of the meta classes that people are currently playing. Um, After discussing the pros and cons of each class, I'm going to assign it a rank. The rating of each class is not going to be just based off of arena like my previous video. The rating is going to be based off of large scale and small scale as well as arena. I'm going to try and touch on as many topics, pros and cons for each weapon setup as I can. But without further ado, let's hop into the video. Alright, so we're going to go ahead and start with the dagger classes for this video. So let's go ahead and start with the most hated class in the game, Greatsword Dagger. Greatsword Dagger is an instant A tier. Um, It is S tier in 1v1s, small scale, arena. In large scale, it is only good as a bomber. Therefore, it is not S tier because you can only have so many limited of these players, and you have to be exceptionally good with your awareness and your ability to predict situations, predict cooldowns in order to be a good Greatsword player. That being said, I'm going to put it in A tier. Now, for Longbow Dagger, for large scale, it is S tier. For small scale and arenas, it is closer to B tier. If you are a good player, you can make this class A tier in 3v3s. However, there are much better classes to play than Longbow Dagger in arenas. But like I said, because it's so good in large scale, it is absolutely insane in large scale. We're going to give it the solid A tier. Now for Spear Dagger, this class is extremely high skill ceiling, meaning it is very build specific. You can build this class wrong and do absolutely no damage. You can build this class correct and be an absolute god. When the class first released, I personally thought it was a lot worse than what it is. And now that the meta is starting to shift, I am starting to actually prefer my Spear Dagger over my Staff Dagger. I will be completely honest with you guys. My Spear Dagger is absolutely destroying kids, and my Spear Mastery is only 12 because I have 5 different weapon setups. But that being said, even with the high skill ceiling, I'm going to put Spear Dagger as complete S tier, and it 100% deserves that. In large scale, it is a monster. You can cleave groups. In 3v3 arenas, it is a monster. You can completely burst enemies. I have almost never lost a 1v1 on my Spear Dagger unless I have taught someone how my class plays. The class is absolutely phenomenal. Crossbow Dagger, this class damage just continues to scale rampantly like a disease running through an underprivileged village. It is completely disgusting what crossbow daggers are currently doing to the game, and the damage only continues to scale. My only hope for this class is that it falls off in T2 because I know in T2 in Korea pre-artifacts it was a little weak, but as of right now at T1, crossbow dagger is absolutely disgusting when geared correctly. If you do not have enough range evasion and or damage reduction, you would just get blown up before you even blink your eye. It is the epitome of a true assassin. Please beware. Large scale, it is a bomber. Small scale, it can completely blow up single targets, but it can also blow up groups if you clump correctly and they have barrage, a barrage based build. Please beware. Crossbow dagger is disgusting. Staff dagger, um, it has fallen off. I will be completely honest. It has fallen off as the meta is changing. As they added these new items, it is so easy to stack a lot of magic evasion right now. I still find myself getting those moments, those glimpses of what Staff Dagger used to be, where I completely blow someone up, but it's dwindling. It's getting far and few in between. More and more people are stacking magic evasion, and less people are dumb enough to contest a Staff Dagger. They know your combo. It's pretty simple, And if you can't one combo someone, there are just better classes to have for sustained fights. It's not the best assassin. In large scale, it's not the best AoE. It doesn't have a true place in the meta, but it does still have great damage. So for now, it's getting a solid A tier. Wand Dagger has completely fallen off the face of the earth. It used to be a one combo bombing machine. However, as we have purification stones and there's a lot more balance in the game because people are catching up in gear. Wand Dagger just is not able to really take off in the sense of controlling the battlefield. You can still sleep bomb and disrupt and do very well. However, it takes a very, very skilled player to do so. So for large scale, it is still very useful. It's not amazing. It's still very, very, very useful. And then for small scale, it's kind of bad, especially in arenas. It's honestly really bad because you can only have one wand per team. It's much better to have a pure healer than it is to have a hybrid. Otherwise, you're just going to get out DPS by an enemy team. Pretty easily shut down. So for Dagger SNS, I'm going to put this at C tier. The class it doesn't do a lot of damage. It's falling off further and further as people's gear progress. Uh, Large scale, you're not as tanky as other classes. Small scale, you don't do as much damage. It doesn't really have a true place in the meta. Just not that great. Longbow Greatsword, it goes into D tier. With the right healer and the right team, this class has utility and it has everything in its kit. However, with Spear coming out, there are just much better classes to play than Longbow Greatsword. Like Longbow Spear is better, or actually just Longbow Staff is just typically better because it has better large scale potential. And then for small scale, you're just not as good as a Dagger Greatsword. You're just not as fluent as a dagger longbow. So in terms of its versatility, it lacks. I think in 1v1s it's still really solid and it can, do pretty well. But in terms of versatility and its game modes, it's just not good in the current meta. There are better classes to play. And then we have SNS Greatsword. Um, we're gonna put this at S tier as it is one of the best tanks in the game. Um, it's great large scale. It's great small scale. You're tanky, you have group buffs, you have heals, and that's the reason it's so good large scale because you're not just tanking things for yourself, you're providing damage buffs to your teammates, which allows you to take damage for your teammates as well. It depends really how you set this class up. You can pretty much do anything. You can be a damage soak, you can be a DPS with a tank on your shield, with a shield on your back, which just makes you tanky. And small scale, you can still one shot and control the battlefield, just instant pull, bind, trip, one shot. The class it has a lot of versatility. It's insanely good. Um, for Spear Greatsword, we're gonna put this in B tier. The class has a lot of damage, but that's literally all it has. You have a small amount of damage soak from the Greatsword, and you do have, don't get me wrong, you do have some utility buffs for the team because you have Unyielding Sentinel, and then you also have um, the damage soak from the Greatsword. You have the HP buffs. You have a lot of stat check, but in terms of its place in the meta, it's not a true assassin. Therefore, it's very easy to get focused. You're not a true tank. Therefore, even though you have a lot of HP, you can still die. 1v1s, it is absolutely phenomenal. But in terms of the place of the meta, the current state of Throwing Liberty, it doesn't have a true place. For a solo player, it'd probably be an insanely fun build to play. You probably never lose a 1v1, but in terms of large scale and small scale, um, there's better classes to play. Just being honest. Next class, we have Outrider, Greatsword, Crossbow. Um, Again, this is another class that's completely fallen off the face of the earth since the introduction of Spear. Um, it used to be able to have some bombing potential in large scale. Uh, it's not that good anymore. Spear, crossbow is just a million times better. And then in terms of small scale, again, you're not a true assassin. You have some damage, but it's very, very easy to kite this class as it doesn't have a whole lot of mobility. And with the selfless diffusion nerf, it kind of hit this spec a little harder because now you don't have the CC break unless you get mana exchange, which kind of messes up your build synergy. So in terms of the current meta, this class gets a C tier. Um, Now for Greatsword Staff, um, we're putting this on D tier. Again, simply because of the introduction of Spear, you're much better off just playing Staff Spear. It has an insane amount more AoE damage and versatility in terms of buffs. Um, don't get me wrong, Greatsword Staff is still insanely good 1v1, but the same as some of these other classes, in small scale 3v3, you're much better off playing Spear because of the cleave. The Greatsword is really good for single targets. The staff is really good for catching people uh, from a range or focusing clumps. But again, in terms of what this class was made to do, the Spear just does it better. So there's no point to play Greatsword staff. Um, so now we have. I'm gonna bring up the bombing potential of Spear crossbow. Spear crossbow is absolutely disgusting as a bomber. It is one of the best bombers in the game. However, for small scale, it's a little harder to bomb unless the enemies are already fighting. So it requires a bit more situational awareness because you don't have stealth, so it's pretty easy to spot this bomber. Um, People are gonna have a bit more awareness of where you are. You're easier to track, so it's not as good in small scale as a crossbow dagger. For 3v3s, a spear crossbow has amazing damage output, absolutely amazing damage output. However, it has bad matchups, bad team composition, due to the fact that you don't have dagger. So if you end up on a team where both of you don't have dagger, or if you end up on a team where you're the only person without the dagger, you can be focused pretty easily and you don't have a lot of survivability. That being said, I'm going to put the class at C tier, even though for bombing, it is likely S tier. Solely for large scale bombing, it is one of the best classes in the game. But that is its huge strong point. Um, Next, we're going to do Spear Wand. This class, in terms of being able to solo and deal damage, is absolutely phenomenal. However, the problem is mostly in 3v3 arenas and small scale, it's sustain. You don't have a lot of resources. So you have to be very careful with how you approach fights with this class because if you DPS too much or if you heal too much, you don't have inner peace such as a staff wand user, and you don't have the mana regen such as a longbow wand user. So your sustain, your ability to do like longer fights is a little lower, even though at the beginning in the middle of a fight, you are insane. Like you are much stronger. You are much stronger than most other classes because you have the DPS of the spear and you have the survivability of a wand. In terms of 1v1s, I don't know if there's a class that could likely beat this class when built correctly, but in terms of sustained fights, it is a little challenging. Um, that being said, I'm going to put it at a solid B tier. I think with the right build, in most cases it could be A tier, but in most people's hands, it's going to be likely B tier, especially from what I've seen. Um, then we have staff spear in large scale and in group fights in Zerg v Zerg. If you have a healer, this class is absolutely disgusting in terms of the damage and DPS. Um, However, that being said, it is team dependent, and because you depend on a team, uh, most people are not really ever going to get the full potential of this class because if your team's not good, then you just don't really do that well. I love the class. However, I can't really play as much as I want to because everyone knows my name, and once they see your name, they're just well, once they see my name, they focus the absolute living shit out of me. And because I don't have dagger or I don't have shield, this is a very, 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 very bad thing. That being said, even though it has S tier damage and large scale and 3v3s S tier damage, because of its lack of survivability and dependency on a team, it gets an A tier. Um, we have uh, we have the absolute monstrosity of a class, SNS Wand. In large scale, it is literally unkillable. You will waste all of your resources on this class before you kill it. It will literally just sit there and live. It'll probably be the last person down on a team unless you're getting absolutely chunked by standing near your teammates and getting cleaved by a spear here on top of Judgment Lightning. If you hit it at the right moment when his buffs are off, you can kill it. But the right paladin with the right positioning, they're almost unkillable large scale. The problem with this class comes into small scale and 3v3s. A smart team will literally never hit you. Therefore, your only option of winning on SNS Wand is pushing people off of the map and healing when you can. Because when your resources are gone and you no longer have mana, then you're useless, right? The enemy team's just not going to attack you, so you're not going to get mana back from your shield. So it's only good versus teams that aren't that smart. However, like I said, it's so godly in large scale. We're going to give it an A tier. Um, SNS Spear. Instant S tier. Because, again, it's versatility. If you go in large scale, you can cleave entire raids. Let's say you stack Explosive Fury off the front line and throw your Javelin Inferno into the mid or back line, you are going to completely chunk groups of enemies. So in large scale, it is a monster. And in small scale, you have so many one combo potential with this class. Pull, trip, one shot, Phoenix Barrage. Its damage is absolutely absurd, and then it is still so tanky when built correctly. I'm actually working on a spec for this build currently. I think it is absolutely amazing. Um, Definitely deserves the S tier in large scale as well as 3v3 small scale. Then we have, I've seen this class more than I would like. With the right gear, it can be good. Without the right team, you can get completely smashed. It is very composition specific if this works, and if you do longbow crossbow in 3v3s, then you absolutely have to go melee evasion. If you don't go melee evasion and or melee endurance, then you're just gonna get completely shat on. I think even with melee endurance, you might still get completely shat on by a Greatsword user or a spear user. So I think melee evasion is honestly your only option. So you're limited on build choice. And then for large scale, again, it's like you're never gonna really get the full utilization of your crossbow. You're gonna be standing in the back with longbow, and then you don't have the survivability of some of the other classes. You don't have the ability to reposition. Um, yeah. So I think in small scale, it's likely like A tier, but in large scale, it's closer to C or D tier. So overall, we're gonna give this class a C tier. It's playable. It's not great. Longbow Wand, instant S tier. It is, I want to say, the best healer in the game, the most um, consistent healer in the game. Um, the reason I like uh, longbow wands on my team is because they provide utility and buffs. With Deadly Marker, you can increase your teammates' damage. You can also give them mana regen. You also have CC in its kit. That being said, with the wand, you have survivability, you have heals. So this class is a controller. It is a great healer. It is a great support. It is one of the best in the game. Comparison to Staff Wand. So for large scale, I think Longbow has a bit more potential. Whereas in small scale, again, it's still extremely strong, just as strong as Staff. The only advantage that it has for large scale, you have Flash Wave. So you're doing massive AoE heals. Whereas I think for small scale, Staff Wand is a bit better because it has a bit more damage. However, for a large scale, Staff Wand is generally just a healer, as well as you have some CC and you have some damage from an enemy's clump. You have some anti-heal. And that anti-heal brings something that the longbow doesn't have. Therefore, we're sliding this into S tier as well. Two of the best healers in the game. Um, very, very solid. Always happy when I see either one of them on my team. Then we have Longbow Staff. I got a lot of hate for not putting this in my last video, so I made sure to include it into this video. I will also mention there is currently a exploit with this class, unintended bug, where you are getting uh more endurance than you should from the passives, and it is making this class absolutely broken currently. However, even when the class is not broken, I will say it performs very well in multiple different situations. For large scale, you have a longbow, meaning you have massive AoE damage. For arenas and small scale, you have some healing, you have some utility. You're usually a punching bag, but in the right team comp, you are the best punching bag because you have healing, because you have mobility of staff, because you have CC. You are not as squishy as people would think, and even though people love to focus you, sometimes that actually works in your favor. So with the right mentality, with the right setup, this class is very, 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 very solid in small scale and large scale. However, you have to have the right mentality knowing that you're going to be focused a lot in small scale. But in large scale, very, very good. You just press Flash Wave. Until they nerf that skill, this class is going to be absolutely godlike in large scale. And then we have Longbow Spear. This class has a lot of potential. However, I have not seen many people play it to its potential. Because of that, I'm giving it a B tier. In large scale, again, you have Flash Wave. Then you have the Javelin Inferno to utilize after your Flash Wave. You have the Unyielding Sentinel, which is going to give you more heavy attack for all of your skills. Heavy attack on Flash Wave or heavy attack on Javelin Inferno is absolutely disgusting. However, I think the best way to play this class is likely as an endurance user, which locks you into an endurance build. That way you're tanking and you can survive, meaning it is more of a Zergling build. Don't get me wrong, you can definitely still play it solo. It's just the fact that because you don't have a lot of surprise in your kit, you have to be a phenomenal player to play this in small scale as well as arenas correctly. That being said, when played correctly, I think it likely deserves at least an A tier. I just haven't seen many people in the current meta playing this at a high level, so that's why it's getting B tier. But I do think it definitely has the potential to be A tier. And then we have Longbow SNS. I'm gonna give this a D tier, just because it doesn't have the damage output as some of the other SNS classes. And then it has really good survivability. It honestly has insanely good survivability. It's like the Legend of Zelda Link build. You have self healing, you have survivability. So in terms of like large scale, it's insanely good. But in terms of small scale, when you really need that extra damage output, I don't think it's really there for this class. It's likely because of the dependency of Longbow on heavy attack, or the dependency on crit, in which you don't really stack. You're gonna stack one or the other. You're not really gonna stack both of these as an SNS user. It really depends, I think, on the gear setup. That being said, I think this class is just largely build and gear specific, making it so gear dependent. I think it's going to be really hard for certain people to use if they don't have the right guides, and there's not a lot of good content out there for this class, so that's likely why it's not performing that well. That being said, I think these are majority of the classes that I see in this game that are performing exceptionally well. These are the classes that I like to have on my team. Um, Now, there was a request that I had in terms of making a tier list that is um, specifically based around arena composition. This is a little difficult um, because of how many classes there are in this game. So instead of doing that, I'm just going to give you guys the top 3 compositions that I like to see in this game. Alright, so instead of making an entire tier list based off of composition, what I am going to do for you guys is just give you some examples of practical 3v3 arena setup and what this looks like when you are building arena teams. If you're looking for diversity in damage, you're looking for um, the Holy Trinity, a tank, a healer, and a DPS. You're looking for balance. You're looking for peel. You're looking for certain aspects, certain weapon setups on your team that complement each other. That being said, an S tier arena 3v3 composition looks like this. It looks like a full support wand, a longbow user, a full tank SNS Greatsword, and then a full DPS spear dagger. But the good thing about spear dagger is that it has AoE or cleave potential, insane cleave potential if the group clumps. An A tier composition looks like this, where you have an SNS Spear where it's not a full tank. It has tanking ability, but this is more of a DPS tank because Spear does not make you as tanky as Greatsword. And then you have, again, not a full healer, but more of a DPS healer, which means you have high damage output, but you don't have the survivability of an S tier comp. And then you have a Dagger Crossbow. Again, this comp will completely destroy most lineups, but when you get into those higher skill matchups where people are only attacking out of stealth, really just rotating their stealth, and they're extremely smart with how they approach fights, this comp is going to have a bit more problems because it does not have the survivability of the S tier comp. And then you have what looks like a B tier comp. You have 2 of the same DPS, right? 2 staff daggers, and then you have a wand, um, a wand shield, uh, which is not a full healer. A wand shield is a paladin, and they're never going to focus you as a wand shield. And you don't have the mana sustain if they don't focus you of a full support healer. You also don't really have as much utility. You have some really good CC and some really good peel, but only as long as your mana survives. So this is what an average B tier lineup looks like. It doesn't have diversity in damage. It doesn't have a true healer. It doesn't have a true tank unless you consider the paladin, which is the only role that really serves its purpose. It's 2 DPS and 1 healer. It's really rough to win certain comps with this, although you definitely can win with this. So that being said, I mean those are the baselines with how you want to build your 3v3 arena comps. Like that's the difference between an S tier, an A tier, and a B tier 3v3 arena comp, in my opinion. That being said, let me know your guys' comments, questions, concerns in the comment section below. Thanks for watching the video. Peace and love, fam.